Hello, everybody, and welcome to the graduation day for the MLH Fellowship. We are about to send the fellows of Batch Zero off into the world as official alumni of the program. Thank you so much, everybody who's tuning in right now on Twitch to help us celebrate all of their amazing accomplishments and learn a little bit about what they've all been up to for the last 12 weeks this summer. I'm Swift. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Major League Hacking. If you've never heard of Major League Hacking before, we're an organization that's focused on empowering our next generation of technologists. Our goal is to inspire and equip them with the skills that they need to succeed in life, wherever it takes them, whether that's for work, personal projects, in the classroom, or whatever their heart's desire. We at MLH have been working hard to serve this community for 7 years now. And we support a community globally of over 100,000 student hackers who attend our events every single year, in person pre-COVID, but now online as well. And this fellowship program is a new program that we launched this past summer, just a little over 12 weeks ago, actually. And today we're here to see the results of all of that hard work and celebrate all those amazing accomplishments. So if you're not familiar with the MLH Fellowship, the idea is simple. Rather than going and interning for a single company, we help aspiring software engineers level up by letting them contribute to open source software that's used by thousands of companies around the world. It's all done under the guidance of expert mentors and with a focus on community and education. We started this past class at the beginning of the summer in June. And over the course of 12 weeks, all of the fellows who you'll meet in a few minutes spent their summer working on some amazing open source projects, some of my personal favorites, in fact. You'll hear more about some of those projects in particular, and you can find a whole list of them on our website as well. If you're interested in learning more about MLH or the fellowship, head over to fellowship.mlh.io. It has all of the details. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't thank a few people who made this entire thing possible. First and foremost, the fellowship would not be possible without an amazing array of partners and sponsors. The first one is the most important for me to thank, and that's the team over at GitHub. Back in around March of this year, right after the pandemic started to officially hit and everything started going remote, we at Major League Hacking started hearing from tens of thousands of community members how they were losing jobs and internships that they had been counting on this summer to gain the skills that they needed to succeed. And they didn't know what they were going to do. So we at MLH knew that we needed to do something about it. And we put our heads together with the folks at GitHub, and we proposed the idea for the MLH Fellowship, and they were in immediately. You'll have a chance to hear firsthand from the folks at GitHub about why they supported this important initiative in a few minutes, but this whole thing would not have been possible without their immediate and initial support there. And so we thank them from the bottom of our hearts. And, of course, they made a huge impact on all of these fellows and all of the amazing maintainers whose open source projects they worked on this summer. We also had an array of other amazing partners, all of whom came together to make this entire thing possible. I want to give special shout outs to the folks at Facebook, the Royal Bank of Canada, Dev.to, Pluto VR, Twilio, Indeed, OBO, AWS, and a special shout out to Joe Nash as well. All of you made this fellowship possible and enabled the participation of all of the fellows who are about to graduate in a few minutes here. So a big round of applause, everybody, for all of our amazing sponsors and partners who made this thing come together. Now, I could spend all day up here talking to you about the fellowship, about the impact, and about what an amazing experience it's been. But I think it's better if you hear about the experience firsthand from the fellows, the mentors, and the partners who all came together to make this thing possible. So without further ado, I'm excited to kick off our graduation ceremony, and I'll be back in a few minutes to help take us home when we're ready to wrap up and talk about next steps. Enjoy, everybody, and congratulations to the fellows of Batch Zero. You're officially about to become alumni, our first class of the program.
Your love came in and thawed my heart. After a winter so cold, it left me frozen inside. You sang a song that unraveled me. The melody was enough to rewrite my story. There's no place I would rather be than in the light of your sun. It changes everything. There's There's no face I would rather see. You pull me out from the dust and you redefine me.
Hey everyone, John from Raise.dev here. It's hard to believe that we're already at the end of the fellowship. It went by so fast. I feel like it was just yesterday I was interviewing so many of you. I hope you had a really excellent summer and you learned a lot. And I also want to say congratulations to everybody who participated in the program, got to the completion, built lots of open source software, learned a ton, and hopefully made a lot of really good connections and had an experience that really kind of changed the course of your career. I'm just looking back and thinking about my experience becoming a developer, and my first entry into open source software was actually through a program many of you probably heard of, Google Summer of Code. So the first year that I applied for Google Summer of Code, I actually didn't get selected, and I spent the entire following year trying to get connected with projects so that I could reapply. And then in I think it was 2008, I was accepted into Google Summer of Code and spent my whole summer working on a now defunct open source PHP project. I didn't even do that great of a job, but it really gave me the opportunity to get involved in open source, get to meet some people in the community, and it set me up for a great trajectory as an open source developer. So I hope many of you had that kind of experience, and that this really is something that makes a big difference for you in the long run. And I know none of that would be possible without the excellent mentors that we had with us this summer. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who was a mentor, especially the ones that were running pods, but also everybody who came in and kind of did guest stuff. And also thank you to the maintainers for having their projects as part of the fellowship. So please, if you haven't already, make sure to thank your mentor and let them know what kind of impact they've had. I know many of them are doing this not more as like a job, but more because they really just enjoy software development, teaching, and helping people kind of get to the next level in their careers. So make sure to thank your mentors, and I just want to say thank you again to all the mentors for putting in the hard effort over this summer and really doing something we had no idea what was going to happen at the beginning, jumping in and helping us figure it all out. Those first couple of weeks were a little bit tough, but everybody got through it, and I think we had a really great experience all around. So thank you to the mentors, and thank you all. Congratulations. Hope to see you around soon.
Hello and congratulations, MLH Fellows of Summer 2020. My name is Jani Evakallio, and this summer I've had the privilege of mentoring 20 bright, ambitious MLH Fellows contribute to open source projects like React, React Native, Jest, and many others. I was asked to say a few words for your graduation, and so I will. Let me take you back to the very first start of the fellowship. Think about the moment before dialing into your first stand-up and to meet your mentor and your peers for the first time. How did that feel? Personally, I felt nervous, because this is the inaugural MLH Fellowship, and inaugural is just a fancy word for first. So just like you, this was the first time I've done anything like this, and I was worried I might mess things up. But here we are, and we didn't mess anything up. We did a big and scary thing that turned out to be really fun and rewarding in the end. And life tends to be that way. When you don't know what something is going to be like, it can seem scary, but after you've done it, you can't figure out why you were so nervous to begin with. And I want you to remember this feeling, because you're gonna need it. In the next few years, you'll be facing a lot of unknowns. Whether you're starting your professional tech career right now or in a couple of years, you're about to step into yet another big unknown. And I've learned a lot from my fellows this summer. For one, I've been in this industry for so long that I forgot how bewildering it looks like from the outside. I had forgotten that just trying to get in through the door can seem like a big challenge. And in fact, The three most common questions I've heard from my fellows this summer are: what do employers look for in a job applicant? Which technology should I focus on? And how can I get better faster? And all these three questions have the same answer. And the answer is, that's the wrong damn question to ask. They're perfectly valid questions, of course, there's no such thing as a stupid question, but they do make an assumption that someone else out there has the answers and your job is to try to guess the right one. That someone else is there setting the pace and it's your job to keep up with that. Because you shouldn't think too much what an employer wants to see in an applicant, because the only thing you can be is be the best version of yourself. You can try to pretend to be something you aren't to get in through the door, but to do well at a job, you need to be the kind of person that has the right skills and attitude and character to do that job. You shouldn't worry too much about what technology to choose, because in a few years' time, they will all be obsolete anyway and you'll be learning something new. Instead, you should follow your curiosity and just let that take you to interesting places and keep working on it and keep learning the things that actually make your brain tick. You shouldn't optimize for learning faster. Cramming books, courses, and tutorials will only leave you head spinning and knowing half the things about half the things that you tried to learn. Instead, you should focus on building a lifelong habit of practicing your craft, working hard, and taking good notes of what you learn along the way. So, what is a better question to ask? How about this one? What do I love doing? Because software is one of those rare fields where it's reasonable to be able to expect to love your job. Your first job might not be the fulfillment of all your dreams. In the beginning, you'll have to work hard to prove yourself in the eyes of others. I know you're capable of this because I've seen you work hard this summer in your open source projects. In the short term, you might have to be tactical and play other people's games, but your goal should never be anything short of winning at your own game where you define the rules. For some of you, the game might be a long and illustrious career at a large company. For others, it might be starting a startup or becoming a researcher or an educator. But the question to ask is, do you love doing it? Because there's an old motivational poster that says, when you love what you do, you'll never work in a day in your life. And this slogan, like most motivational slogans, is absolute bullshit. To an outsider, programming might seem like an easy job, but it's not. It's sitting in front of a computer for countless hours, solving complicated puzzles, and it may seem that entire businesses depending on you getting those puzzles right and doing them fast. So no matter how much you love programming, there are always going to be days when you'll definitely feel like it's work. But if you do love what you do, these challenges will feel small compared to the reward. Working hard on what you love is a life well and purposefully lived. And that's how I felt this summer mentoring all of you, seeing you grow as engineers, as professionals, as open source contributors. It was one of the most fulfilling professional experiences of my career. And I've never met a group of people so passionate and talented and hardworking as you, our fellows. So I'll be keeping my eye out for familiar names in the news, because as long as you keep following your passion, you're going to achieve great things. So thank you for being the first inaugural class of MLH Fellowship. Thank you for doing this thing together. It wasn't that scary after all.
Everyone, my name's Catherine, and I'm a recent graduate of computer engineering from the University of Toronto here in Canada. I'm really thankful to be one of your graduation speakers today, and first and foremost, I want to say a massive congratulations. Class 0, we're done. That was 12 weeks of the program, hundreds of PRs, thousands of lines of code changed, a couple of personal projects, and hopefully some friends made in the process. The optimism that I feel now coming out of this program is a marked change from where I was at the end of April, where COVID threw a big wrench into my plans, and I was really uncertain as to what I'd be up to for this summer. Fortunately, every once in a while I do check my newsletters, and when I saw this program, I applied, interviewed, and really thankfully got in because it has been a phenomenal experience for me. My initial motivation applying was I wanted to contribute to open source. Makes sense. But open source has been something that's been on my radar for a while, that really aligns with my values. I really like this idea of contributing to software that absolutely anyone can contribute to, and then building blocks that other people can build off of. But I was always a little bit intimidated to make that first step and to comment on an issue publicly because I was a little bit afraid of the response that I would get. So my goal going into the program was to become confident contributing to open source. Fortunately, that goal was relatively easy to achieve. But what I took away from the program was so much more than just how to contribute. What I took away was this amazing sense of community. And I got this sense of community in two ways. The first way was through the fellowship, through all of you fellows. Everyone that I met in the program has been wonderful, has been incredibly intelligent, very technically competent, but beyond that, everyone has been really kind. If I was stuck on a bug or I was working on an issue that was going slowly and I needed a boost, I could just reach out and anyone in my pod would be willing to hop on and pair with me for a little while to get that issue sorted. The second place that I felt that community was within the broader open source community, within all the maintainers who gave so much of their own personal time to help with the program. The maintainers who hopped on calls with me to do more high-touch code reviews, the maintainers who DM'd me to checking on how that my issues were going. I really appreciated the amount of buy-in from that side of the community, but also just how supportive and kind everyone was. Like they were creating this learning environment. And I think the two sides of it, one, the fellowship where you have friends that you can message on Discord every time you get stuck, plus the maintainers who are willing to give their time to break down issues for you, created this very psychologically safe and supportive environment for me that encouraged me to take risks, to do more ambitious PRs, and to just grow and learn both personally and professionally throughout the 12 weeks. So I wanted to thank everyone for creating that sort of environment that hopefully helped me and others grow throughout this program. Going forward, I have two hopes for the class of 0. The first hope is that we stay supportive of each other. So that's supportive of the other fellows within the program, but that's also supportive of the people at your next workplace or within your university class or at your next research gig. I think creating that environment where you're willing to help, where you're enthusiastically investing in other people creates an amazing collaborative space where cool projects, cool, effective, innovative projects can come out of. So I hope everyone continues to be a culture carrier in building that space. My second hope for Class 0 is that we stay makers. The news every morning shows me that, hey, yeah, there's still a lot of problems in the world, and I believe that it's really on our generation to fix a lot of them. It's for us to go and challenge the status quo and dictate the world we want to see. And software provides a wonderful framework for us to build technical, cool solutions that help change the world. So I hope we all kind of attain that hackathon spirit and stay makers and keep on building solutions to the problems that we have in our lives. My last thing I wanted to talk about, or last thing I want to say, is just a big thank you to MLH for organizing this program that I've learned so much through, to our mentors for being with us every step along the way and trying to make the whole process easier, for the maintainers who gave so much of their own personal time to kind of help us along the way, and for the sponsors for making the entire program possible. Class 0, congrats, we're done.
Hey there, my name is Ryan and I'm a first year software engineering student currently enrolled in RMIT, located right here in the southeast coast of Australia. Now, isn't it crazy that it's already been 3 months? From the very beginning, we've contributed thousands upon thousands of lines of open source code to over 30 repositories, while learning, growing as people, and possibly even meeting lifelong companions along the way. While this may feel like the end, I know that for a lot of us, our journey into open source has only just begun. Now, I would say I'm quite new to the open source community. Now, don't get me wrong, I contributed questionable pieces of code, those little hidden gems tucked away on GitHub. But if you told me I'd be writing code that had the potential to impact millions, I think who thought letting this guy contribute anything was a good idea. But alas, the idea of making such an impact excited me. So, in a year which I didn't think not much good could happen, and a routine scroll through Twitter, I found out about the MLH Fellowship on GitHub's Twitter feed, and I applied, and actually ended up getting in. And I knew from that day forward that this could be my chance. 3 months later, and I'm more than overwhelmed by what I managed to achieve with the help of my mentor and my peers. I've learned many new incredible technologies such as TypeScript and Gatsby, worked alongside incredible people who were on this thrilling ride with me, and even learned some soft skills such as how to take and give feedback or how to even deliver your own workshop. My greatest opportunity, however, was a chance to work on Prism, an advanced mapping application currently being used by the World Food Programme. It has one goal: to help the decision makers on the front lines effectively and efficiently distribute humanitarian aid to the people who need it most. Now, after hours upon hours of code, reviews, and just working with the maintainers and my teammates, I think we got to make that impact. With our handful of PRs among the hundreds submitted by this fellowship, we managed to refactor, optimize, and restart Prism on top of adding exciting new features such as a notification system and a brand new analysis UI, which makes it easier than ever for users to better understand the environmental impacts on certain populations. The fellowship wasn't all about open source, however. We also got to try out activities I didn't realize I was missing out on as a developer. We tried out 2 intense hackathons, which are great ways to bond with your mates, learn something new, and just have fun. We even got to try out a CTF, a fun puzzle-solving activity I didn't even realize was a thing before the fellowship. And the crazy part is, it was initiated and run almost entirely by a group of genius fellows, which just goes to show how open this fellowship really is. Now, I still have a long way to go before I graduate and land my first full-time job as a software engineer. And by a long way, I mean like almost 4 years. But I think I speak for most of the fellows when I say that the fellowship has given us the knowledge, the connections, and the push we need to land that dream job, continue contributing to open source, or possibly even be a disruptor and start something new. Now, on top of the fellows I had the pleasure to learn from and grow, I want to thank everybody behind the MLH Fellowship. For if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here celebrating this astounding milestone. The people behind the fellowship, from the MLH staff to the mentors, to the maintainers, to the sponsors, are the most open, knowledgeable, and friendliest group of people I've ever met, and I couldn't have thought a better bunch to give us this unforgettable experience. I'm excited for Class 1, Class 2, and every class onwards, for while this fellowship might only last 3 months, I know its impact will last a lifetime. And for my fellow fellows of Class 0, give ourselves a pat on the back, for the work we did during these 3 months will stick around for decades, helping millions for decades more. While this may be the end, I know I'll spot every single one of you on GitHub committing a difference. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me. This is Ryan, signing off.
Hi everyone, I'm Rashika, computer engineering undergrad student from Nepal. It is truly an honor to be here addressing today. First and foremost, I'd like to congratulate you all. We are finally here, we made it. I remember just a few months early to today when COVID hit us, I was locked in my house with nowhere to go, nothing to do beside watching my interviews getting cancelled and reading about what I was going to do for this summer. When I luckily stumbled upon MLH Fellowship and I just knew that I had to apply for it. My initial motivation towards applying to MLH Fellowship was to get into the world of open source, as the support and the sense of community that I felt it had was something that I found very incredible and something that I wanted to experience for myself. But I never knew where I should start from and always dreaded that large, scary code base, which now I realized wasn't that much scary after all. Through this fellowship, I got that much needed initial push to get started with contributing to open source and got the first-hand experience of seeing just how supportive open source community can be. But that was not it. I got to experience this incredible feeling of being a part of such an amazing program where everyone motivated you, encouraged you, and pulled you up. Everyone I met throughout this fellowship were so amazing, incredibly helpful. The maintainers of the project went up and beyond in helping us get started in tackling the issues. My podmates were always there giving each other the helping hand whenever needed, and my mentor always there motivating us and pushing us to achieve more. All of which gave me a space to do things that I would not have done before, like signing up to work in a hackathon project with tech stack I've never used before, or taking up issues even if I wasn't sure how to get it done. From the start of the fellowship, when our pod found out that we will be contributing to Julia language, a language many of us had never used before, and yet seeing everyone so pumped up and ready to take on was such a rare thing to witness, and I could not help but share and feel the same level of excitement and willingness to just jump in and get started. This past 12 week has truly been an exhilarating journey filled with learnings, and I'm so glad that I got to share this incredible journey with you all. Contributing thousands of lines of code and tens and hundreds of open source projects, fixing that issue, adding that new feature, you all have made an incredible amount of contribution and made an impact. You all are truly rock stars, and going forward from here, I believe that each and every one of you are going to be the change makers, the innovators who is going to shape the future of the tech world. Believe in yourself and trust in the journey. There is nothing that you cannot achieve. At last, I'd like to thank MLH for bringing in such an amazing experience for all of us this summer. To all the mentors who were there helping us in every step of our journey. To all the maintainers who gave the time and effort in helping us in every possible way. And Class 0, once again, congratulations to you all. Keep hacking, keep creating, and keep open sourcing.
Hi, my name is Mike McQuaid. I'm the project leader of the macOS Homebrew Package Manager. I've been a maintainer there for about 10 years, and my day job is working at GitHub, where I've been an engineer there for about 7 years. I heard about the MLH Fellowship this summer through Vanessa at GitHub and Mike Swift. I chatted with them, and they kind of pitched this cool new idea that sounded a bit like Google Summer of Code, but being done through a different organization. And I'd been a student once with Google Summer of Code back in 2007, and it was really kind of groundbreaking thing that made me change the way I looked at software development, changed the way I looked at open source, and kind of got me on the path to where I am today. And I've mentored a few times on Google Summer of Code since then, so I thought this sounded like a really interesting idea, and because we were doing Google Summer of Code this summer as well, it could kind of segue nicely with that. So Homebrew this summer has kind of had, I think, 4 students working on this stuff for us. And it's been really great. So we've had people working on stuff that we'd scoped out for some of the Google Summer of Code projects, and these are now all either merged or in their final stages, in which case they'll be merged before graduation. And there's some really cool stuff in there for our users. So one of the projects was one of our fellows added software licenses to Homebrew. So you can now query kind of license data, see whether things are GPL licensed, BSD licensed, whatever, and also block the installation of things if they're under a license which you don't want to use. We've added a tool for checking packages are up to date and being able to provide that information so people know whether or not to make a pull request or not. And also generally improving lots of the integration between the brew cask and the brew commands so that people who are confused between the two are able to just use brew for a lot more things and not have to kind of call brew cask all the time. So from my perspective, it's been a really great summer. So my interactions with the fellows have all been really positive. Everyone's been really polite and pleasant and nice to work with. People have been great at taking on board feedback and addressing things. So I would say everyone's actually been really good and impressive from day one, but it's been really nice to see over the course of the summer. I've been seeing all the fellows we've been working with kind of leveling up more and more. There's less and less feedback I'm having to give on PRs. People are learning that things like, the red CI feedback you get, if you've kind of broken some tests or whatever it may be, is a kind of sign for them to go and jump on things and fix that without me having to say anything. And just generally like the type of things which make the difference when you're an open source maintainer like I am, between having really easy to work with pull requests and having tricky ones. So there was a couple of tricky ones at the beginning of the summer, and then by now everything's becoming really easy, which is great. And it shows how much they've learned. So I really hope that the fellows who have worked on Homebrew this summer and the fellows who've worked on every project have enjoyed what they're doing. I mean, it's great to be paid to work on open source, and it's great I think, to work on open source in general. So I hope that at least some of you will kind of go off and continue to work on open source. For me, it's been a really impactful thing for my career and the way I look at software development. I've learned a huge amount through doing open source that I wouldn't have learned at an ordinary day job. And I also feel that open source is changing the world, really. It's leveling the playing field, and it's something which is tremendously valuable and used every day by millions of people. So do what you can, help us out, help the open source community, and we'll hopefully help you and do our bit too. And thanks for the hard work, everyone. And hopefully you can now go and have a break and do whatever you do normally to relax, which presumably isn't repeatedly trying to fix the same failures in GitHub Actions, which is what most of us spend our days doing. So have a good one, and thanks again.
Hello everyone, my name is Emeka Fibo and I lead developer programs here at Facebook. I just wanted to take a moment to say a huge thank you to all of you who took part in the Major League Hacking Remote Open Source Fellowship program, where you've been making very impactful contributions to some of our open source developer tools. Now, I'd also like to give a special shout out to the 20 members of our Facebook Developer Circles global community who also participated. Now, your participation has continued to enhance the reputation of our community as a community of world-class builders. You see, initiatives like this continue to prove that no matter who you are or where you are, for as long as you have the talent and the zeal, you can actually make a telling contribution to the world of technology. So thank you once again for building with us, and I'm excited to see how you leverage the opportunities and relationships from this fellowship to take your careers to the next level. Take care.
Hello, everybody. Let me start by sharing my heartfelt congratulations to all Major League Hacking Fellows for successfully completing the MLH program. Congratulations to all of you. I'm Kathy, and I head the open source program here at Facebook. When I speak of how excited we are of your work and contributions, I represent the voice of all maintainers of the Facebook open source project that you contributed to in the past 12 weeks. A huge testimony of how positively this program resonated with the engineering team was when we got feedback from them. They asked whether we can grow the program 10 times and have even more people participate. This clearly reflects the high confidence in the work and your contribution to some of the top Facebook projects like React, React Native, Jest, and Hermes. I do sincerely hope that your relationship with these projects and other fellows do not end here. In fact, this should be the beginning of a long-term relationship between you and the projects you have contributed to, and I hope that not only do you continue your contributions, you're encouraged to support other members of the developer community and contribute to open source and lead as a strong ambassador for open source and Major League Fellowship program. On behalf of everyone at Facebook Open Source team, I wish you a very successful career, and once again, thank you for all your hard work. Bye.
Hey MLH, I'm Rick Hanlon. I work on the React team at Facebook. I wanted to take a moment and thank all the fellows in the React Native pod who contributed to React Native open source this summer. I really enjoyed working with all of you, and I hope you had a great time as well. I also wanted to thank all of the fellows for their work this summer. You're all super inspiring, and I'm glad to be a small part of your journey. Thanks!
Hey guys, I just wanted to say thank you to you both for the work you've done on the profiler. It's been great watching the progress you've made, and I'm really excited about the resulting MVP that we have to move forward with now. The UI and the performance are both much more polished than I'd expected, so thanks again. If either of you would be interested in contributing to this profiler in the future, I'd be happy to work with you, and best wishes. Bye.
Hi Tan, Amshul, Drew, Nizarag, and Rohan. This is Joel Marcy from Facebook. I'm one of the creators of Docusaurus and a proud partner in MLH. I just wanted to say a sincere thank you for all of your efforts during these 12 weeks in helping improve a project that is both critical and widely used for Facebook open source projects, and actually open source projects around the world. From the work you did to create a tool to help find and squash site issues quickly, to the migration CLI that allows people to migrate from Docusaurus v1 to Docusaurus v2 sites, to improving the experience of using Docusaurus locally, you really helped make Docusaurus v2 so much better and that much closer to being ready for its official release. And for that, I'm really grateful, and thank you so much for your hard work on that.
Hey, Anshu, TechDream, Drew, and Rohan. It has been our pleasure to work with you guys and Sebastian on Docker Source V2 as part of the MLH program. I'm really impressed by the work you guys have done, in particular the V1 to V2 migration tool, the plugin options validation, and a ton of fixes which have greatly improved the developer experience of Docker Source. What impressed me even more was that for most of you, it's your first time contributing to an open source project. I hope this has been a pleasant experience for you guys and that you will continue contributing to Docker Source beyond the program. Thank you so much.
Congratulations on graduating from the MLH Fellowship. Interactive is all about helping developers find their communities, and we're so proud of you for contributing to some truly fantastic communities and helping some amazing projects. All the best for the future. I can't wait to see what you do with your careers.
Hi everyone, I'm Shanku, and it's my pleasure to be here today to speak to you on this special occasion. First, I want to start off by saying congratulations on this amazing accomplishment. You are the first graduating class of the MLH Fellowship program. I hope it's been a fun 12 weeks. I hope you made friends. I hope you made some great memories. And I hope you're proud of the work that you've done. On behalf of GitHub and the open source community, I want to thank you for your work. Now at GitHub, we have a vision, and that's to be the home for all developers. But underneath that vision is a belief that software development is now a key part of human progress. If you think about it, pretty much every major human achievement going forward is going to have some technology behind it. And that technology is going to be powered by software. And to do that, software development is going to have to continue to have a pioneering spirit. So this is a day to celebrate a first. And that first is you. You as the first class of this new program are pioneers. You've now done something in software development that has never been done before. And I want to pause for a moment and recognize that. I also want to thank the sponsors, the mentors, the teams at MLH and GitHub, and everyone else who has contributed to this first of a kind effort. You're all pioneers too. Thank you. Now, the software world today looks very different than when I started. This is me when I was 10. I just moved from India to Canada and arrived on New Year's Eve to 3 feet of snow. I'd never seen snow before. The next Monday, I was walking to school in the snow. Now, it took me a long time to settle in. Growing up in India, I didn't have a phone or a car or a television, let alone a computer. I looked different. I talked different. I felt different. But then one day, we had a field trip to our local high school, and there in a room was this. This is a Commodore PET computer. It looks very daunting, but today you would find more power on a chip that could fit on the tip of your finger than this machine. But at the time, this was amazing. And more amazing was that it came, like all computers at the time, with a programming language called BASIC built in. So it's like a door to something magical. Now, after all the kids left, I stayed there tinkering on this computer, and I stayed so long, I got in trouble. But even then, I knew that this was going to be my instrument. This was how I was going to create things that would help change the world. And for my next birthday, I was lucky. My aunt and uncle got me my own computer. Cost $2,000, which was an insane amount of money. But that was the start of my craft. Now, it wasn't just me. Over the years, I've had a chance to meet programmers who have their own amazing stories, like the twin brothers from Northern Ontario, who were too poor to have their own computer. So they would go to their local department store every day on the weekend, and they would write code on the demo machine, knowing that when they had to leave the store, they would lose all of their code. And that's how they learned how to code, and they became professional developers. Or the person from India who didn't get into computer engineering class because he came from too small a town. And so he would skip out of his classes by going through the window and go next door to learn computer science. And that's how he learned how to develop code. And today he is a tech exec here in the US. So all of these people had a common dream that by learning how to write code, by taking part in the craft of creating software, they would be able to help transform the world. And when I left high school, I continued my craft. I went to university, and this was my university, the University of Waterloo. This was the Math and Computer Science building, and it was full of more magic. Here we learned that there was a whole community in software development, and that there was a science behind coding. We learned about entire new algorithms, some of which didn't exist 20 years earlier. And we got to learn how to write faster and better code. We also learned about the true pioneers, people like Alan Kay and Margaret Hamilton and Dennis Ritchie, giants that came before us, people who invented things that we take for granted today, things like the graphical user interface or the compiler or the spreadsheet. Now, the best thing about Waterloo, though, is that it had a co-op program. And the most that I ever learned from software development, I learned from my internships in the real world. I got 6 internships. 2 of them were at Microsoft. So this is the Microsoft campus in 1991. It was a much smaller place, about 7,000 employees. Back then, all of Microsoft was just starting to adopt Windows for the first time. So on my first term, I got to write code that went into the first version of what was called Windows NT at the time. And that stayed in the product until about 2012. On my second term, I got to port the email app that everyone at Microsoft was using to Windows. So as they moved, they could keep getting email. Those were real fun projects. Just last week, I came across my internship report card from that term. I'm not gonna share it with you, but the report card meant so much to me that I hung on to it for a very long time. Now, on my internships, I learned from mentors, I learned from coworkers who had experienced new things before me. And I got to learn what it was like to do software development as a real job and see whether I loved it, and I did. And that became a career. Now that experience was more valuable than anything I learned in class. Now, I know a lot's changed since then. We have lots more power in our hands, things I couldn't dream of back then, not just hardware, but the internet, access to information, amazing places like GitHub. But software development just keeps getting more complex, right? If you think about what goes into a Tesla or a SpaceX rocket or even an iPhone, if I got transported from 20 years ago to today, I would truly be amazed by seeing these things. And no doubt, in just a few years' time, you will be building things and creating new leaps that we haven't even thought of yet. So that pioneering spirit is going to continue. And today, you are the pioneers. You've done something that no one has done before. So as you walk away from this experience, there are 2 things I want you to take away. The first, I want to encourage you to always be thinking about the impact of the work you're doing. Now, over the years, I've written lots of code. I eventually stopped writing code and led teams that build code. I also went into developer tools so I could build tools to help people write code. But when I look back at all the projects I built, the thing I think about is how that software got used by others, how it helped change their lives. Now at GitHub, we see this in a lot of ways. Sometimes it's the amazing things people build on GitHub. Sometimes it's the way that GitHub helps advance other things like computer science education. Or sometimes it's just something small, like when you sit down beside a stranger and they open up their laptop and they start using the tools that you built. It's a great feeling. So these things are incredibly inspiring. Now, you've had a chance to work on open source, and with the open source, impact is just built in, right? If software is the heart of everything, open source is the heart of software. It's a force multiplier. From helping humanity find the black hole for the first time, or advancing research, or powering just about every device on the world, open source is doing that. Even in these difficult times, if you think about how open source and open data is being used to learn and share and build on COVID research, it's incredible to see. It's something the world would have never been able to do in the past. And I'm confident that when we come out of this, it will owe a large part to those efforts. So you've worked on open source now, and no matter what project you've worked on, that means the work that you've done is going to endure. And that's incredible. Now, the next project you may work on may or may not be open source. I hope it is, but even if it's not, I want you to think about how it will help create the change that you want to see in the world. Because in software development and as a developer, you do have the power to do that. And the second thing I want you to take away is how you're changing the way software itself is developed. Just think about it. There's a whole new world that is unfolding in real time around this, really. And over the next 5 years, that's going to keep going because the estimates are that 500 million new apps are going to be created. That's more than the history of software development, really the last 40 years combined. And that's not going to happen by just developing software the old way. And when I was an intern, the thought of remotely working from across the world would be unthinkable. And open source didn't even exist. But you've now gotten to experience that. You've gotten to beta test it. Hope you've learned from it. And that is a huge asset going forward. Now, when you go away, I hope you get to use some of these skills, but I also want you to think about how to make them better and how to take this to the next level. And I want you to share your learnings and your ideas with others and with us, because that won't just make you successful in this new world, it's going to help make you leaders in it. And it will help you pave the path for generations of new developers who can then stand on your shoulders and be pioneers themselves. Again, congratulations on this amazing accomplishment. All the best in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me at the first ever MLH Fellowship graduation. I am so honored to be speaking to you today, and I hope you've had a fantastic 12 weeks. So before we dive into my speech, I want to thank the folks who made this program possible. We truly would not have been able to do this without them. Thank you to GitHub for being our presenting partner of the inaugural batch, Facebook, Ovio, Twilio, Indeed, Dev, RBC, Interactive, Pluto, and AWS Amplify. If you see any of them, please give them your heartfelt thank you as well. This was absolutely made possible with their support. So to introduce myself, I'm John Gottfried, and I am one of the co-founders of Major League Hacking, along with Swift, who you've probably met. I'm based here in New York City. I have a history degree, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. And my most popular GitHub repo only has 30 stars. I think many of you in the program have already beat me where that's concerned. You can find me on Twitter at JohnMarkGo. I'm also John Mark Go on basically every other platform in existence if you ever want to track me down. So I know that this fellowship fed in from the Major League Hacking community, but I wanted to give you all a quick overview of who we are and what our mission is before we dive into talking about open source. So Major League Hacking is the global community for student developers. We work with more than 100,000 students just like you all over the world to help them learn, build, and share awesome technology outside of class. We do this through hackathons, workshops, clubs, and awesome programs like the Fellowship. But, when I was growing up, none of this existed. Frankly, we're only a 7-year-old company, so none of this existed a short time ago. My experience with the internet and programming at a young age, I would imagine is vastly different than what yours has been. I'm only 29 years old, but as a kid, the internet was a totally different place. You look at this graphic and laugh, but this was such common imagery, surfing the web or dialing up. And I distinctly remember unplugging my parents' phone line, plugging it into a modem, and spending 10 minutes trying to dial up and access the internet at incredibly slow speeds. But even back then, I was inspired by the potential of this platform. I remember being a kid, being obsessed with, books like Harry Potter or Animorphs, if you've ever heard of that, and spending time with my friends to create little web pages talking about our passion for them. And the first time that one of those projects ever landed in the lap of someone I didn't know blew my mind. I really remember this feeling where someone had emailed me from a link on my website asking how I had built it. And, 10-year-old me was like, whoa, I created something that someone I've never met has been impacted by. And that totally changed my life. I started thinking about the internet not as a place where I could go and have fun and play games, though that was certainly part of it, but as a place where I could reach people and be creative and spread my passion to people that I've never heard of or met and who live all over the world. And in many ways, that's exactly what you're doing during this fellowship and in all of the programming work that you're doing over your career. You know, I think when we talk about the impact of this fellowship, it's really, quite striking. There were about 36 projects in the fellowship. Here is a small sampling of them. I can't fit all the logos on one screen, but these are really foundational projects to modern programming. People are working on compilers, they're working on frameworks, they're working on, utilities and tools and all sorts of really amazing software that actually touches tens of millions of developers around the world. And I really think that you all should try to reflect on that opportunity and reflect on the work you've done, because you should be incredibly proud of it. And we are incredibly proud of the work that you've done. And when you look at the numbers, clearly this is something that resonates with people. We had more than 20,000 applicants that led us to the 150 of you sitting here with us today, working on 36 open source projects. And that work is really, really phenomenal. When we look at just the numbers, on average, each of you had 1,000% increase in pull requests from the time before the fellowship to during the fellowship. And I don't say this to stroke our ego and talk about how awesome we are for putting on the fellowship. I say this because I think oftentimes when we're in the midst of something really special, it's easy to lose sight of it and forget all of the work that we've done and all of the effort and learning and struggles that have been part of that journey. So, give yourselves a quick round of applause, because doing that level of work and switching gears overnight is something that is really amazing. But I think, we often talk about these numbers when we're trying to justify the worth of something like this. And in some ways, that's not the entire point. Most of you probably feel implicitly that the fellowship and the technology work you do is about much more than the number of pull requests or stars, or even the number of people who are in the program. And at the end of the day, the internet is made of people, people like you and me. And these people are not only programmers, many of them are users of the software you create. They are people who help design it and invent it and come up with all of these really awesome tools that we use on a day-to-day basis. And whenever I think about that, whenever I think about how people outside of this little circle of technology creators uses the internet and uses technology, in some ways it's hard to even comprehend, but it's our responsibility as creators to do right by them, and to do right by our fellow programmers. As I was researching, some famous philosophers and speakers and computer scientists for this talk, one quote really stuck with me, because I've always thought about computer science and technology as more of an art form than a science. It's not just about, doing the experiment. It's often about ideating and being creative in such a way that your code works for other people and has an impact on other people. And so Donald Knuth, had this to say. He said, "The best programs are written so that computing machines can perform them quickly and so that human beings can understand them clearly. A programmer is ideally an essayist who works with traditional aesthetic and literary forms as well as mathematical concepts to communicate the way that an algorithm works and to convince a reader that the results will be correct." He's a very influential computer scientist, and this really resonated with me because, as I mentioned earlier, I actually studied history in college. I know that most of you are studying computer science or engineering or other STEM disciplines, but I think that when I look back on what I learned studying the liberal arts, I think the most important thing that I took away from that is the skills to analyze and think about the human element in a lot of what we do. And I think that programming truly is a human discipline, because at this stage in our society and culture, computers are roughly equivalent to life, and I say that not to downplay all of the non-technology experiences that we all have on a day-to-day basis, but to highlight the fact that we spend most of our waking hours connected to some kind of device, whether it's a computer or a tablet or a phone, or even something like an Amazon Alexa or Google Home where you're talking to the computer. This work we do has an immense impact on other people. And the open source work you've done over the past 12 weeks not only impacts the millions of developers out there and has enabled them to do new, better things with their code, by extension, it's also enabling and impacting all of the users of that code. And so I do want you to think about that concept of being, an essayist, right? Creating code that is relatable to people, that has a positive impact on them, and ultimately, enables them as fellow programmers to do good in the world. So with all of that being said, there are 3 things I would like you to leave the fellowship thinking about as you move on to your future work. Because the truth of the matter is, it is unlikely that you will be spending the entirety of your careers working on open source. I do hope that it will continue to be something that you contribute to and give back to, because as developers, we all benefit from it immensely. But much of your work and much of your career is probably going to be spent in closed source ecosystem. And so I'd like you to keep all of these concepts in mind as you go out into the world and begin your technology careers. The first is, I would encourage all of you to be empathetic programmers. What I mean by this is, as you're writing code, as you're designing systems, as you're creating software, you should be thinking about not only the other programmers who have to touch it, but all of the end users out there who might potentially be impacted by the things you create. We have an immense responsibility, but also opportunity to spend a very small amount of time, effort, and resources to create technology that millions or billions of people around the world can touch and interact with. And with that potential, obviously comes a great responsibility, like Spider-Man. And so I would encourage all of you to think about the human element of what you're creating, create things that are easy for other programmers to interact with, and also have a positive impact on the end user. Next, I want you to create work that inspires you. I mentioned earlier that my most popular GitHub repo only has 30 stars. It doesn't matter, right? It's not a race to the top in terms of popularity on these different platforms. Obviously, it's a signal that something gets a lot of use, but that repo is a library I wrote for a robotics project that I was creating purely for fun. I never expected or even necessarily wanted anyone else to use that code, but I put it out there in the world because I had gained something from creating it. And I thought maybe there was a slight chance other people could gain from that as well. But at the end of the day, it was the journey and the process that mattered far more to that experience than the end result of that code base. And so I would encourage all of you to do things that you are passionate about, do things that inspire you, and don't dwell too much on the potential popularity or viral growth that those things might have, because often many of our most interesting projects and work comes out of a personal need, want, or purely just curiosity. And last, I want you all to understand your potential. Most of you came into this fellowship having never contributed to open source before, and in a matter of weeks, you wrote code and pushed code to major repositories and projects that are now being used by tens of millions of developers and some of the world's leading companies in production. That's wild. You have an immense potential to create technology and software and communities that change the world. And I really think that as you go off, it is your responsibility to not only reflect on your own potential as a developer and as a creator, but to find ways to give back and create that potential for other people. Because if I were to tell all of you coming to this fellowship about the transformation and the impact you would have in such a short period of time, I would imagine many of you would not have believed me, right? And now you can look back on it and think about the journey you've been through. But many other people are intimidated or don't understand that they have the exact same potential as you do. And I think it's our responsibility as people who have been through that process ourselves to go back and hold the hand and create those opportunities for the next generation of developers. Teach someone to code, pair with someone you've never met, give a talk at your local club or hacker meetup, go to a hackathon and mentor someone. Your potential is not only evidenced in the code you create, it's also largely evidenced by the impact you have on other people. So with all of that, I want to thank you all profusely from the bottom of my heart. Working at MLH for 7 years, I am always reminded of why our mission is to empower hackers when we see programs like this, where a small group of people become a tight-knit squad in a very short period of time and work together to create a meaningful, positive, and outsized impact on the world. And so I think you should all be incredibly proud of yourselves and the work that you've done. And I want to thank all of the mentors, all of the staff, and all of the maintainers that have been part of this program. We could not have done this without you. And I cannot wait to see all of the amazing things that each of you creates after this fellowship is long over. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Wow, what an amazing graduation ceremony. Congratulations to all of the MLH Fellows of the class of Batch 0. We are so proud of you and all of your accomplishments. It's been an amazing 12 weeks that we've been able to spend with you, and we wish you the best of luck in the future. I know based on all the amazing content we just saw, as well as talking to our fellows and mentors individually, that the things that fellows experienced and learned are going to carry them long into the future. And I can't wait to see where you all go from here. If for some reason you're just tuning in at the very end of this graduation ceremony, my name is Swift. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Major League Hacking, and you just watched the tail end of the graduation of our first batch of MLH Fellows. The MLH Fellowship was a program designed to help aspiring software engineers gain the skills that they need to level up in their careers. Rather than taking a traditional internship at a single company, they got to contribute to open source software that's used by thousands of companies around the world. They worked on production code that much of it is actually in production right now, running today. They did it all under the guidance of expert mentors who helped them learn and grow. And they did it with a class of about 150 other amazing fellows who are going to be a really powerful network to carry them well into the future. We just saw an amazing series of speakers talking about all of the things that fellows have been up to for the last 12 weeks. We will be publishing this graduation ceremony on YouTube in case you do want to check it out and miss part of it and go back and see some of the amazing things that might have gone by too quickly, or hear from any of our speakers again who obviously had a lot of great things to say about the fellows. If you're thinking about becoming an MLH Fellow, you're in luck. We recently announced the upcoming next class starting this fall, and we'll be running it as a continuous program 3 times per year, once in the fall, once in the spring, and once during the summer. You can learn all about the program and actually apply to become an MLH Fellow at fellowship.mlh.io. It has all of the details about the program, as well as all the upcoming classes, and lots of really good information there. The fall class is going to be running from September 21st until December 14th, and applications are open right now for any aspiring fellows who are interested in joining us. We also have spring and summer batch applications open as well. The spring batch running from January 18th to April 12th, and the summer batch running from May 24th to August 16th. We can't wait to have even more amazing fellows joining the class of alumni in the future. And we can't wait to see where they take their experience in the fellowship and where all of our alumni take their experience as well. So without further ado, I will sign off for the day. Once again, congratulations to all of the fellows who graduated. Thank you so much to all the mentors who've been working with them diligently over the course of the last 12 weeks, to all the maintainers who are willing to take on fellows and have them contribute to their projects, and to all of the partners and sponsors who made this program possible in the first place. A huge shout out to GitHub for being our initial launch partner on this. The fellowship would not be possible without you and all of your team. And we cannot wait for the future, and we hope you're all excited about it as well. And happy hacking, everybody. I'm Swift for Major League Hacking, and we'll see you soon.